Hello and welcome, movie people. We are here at the podcast where we talk about movies because movies is what we care about and we eat, sleep, and drink movies. I am Elisa Ivers. I'm here with my co-host, David. What's your last name, Steele?
Yes.
I almost
Yes.
forgot for a second, but I got
Yes.
it. And this
No.
is the podcast Real Talks. And we're so excited to have you if you're listening. Thank you. And if you are listening, you should probably follow us because it's rude if you don't. And I always say that, but I mean, I feel like the very least you could do is to follow us. I feel like that's really nice and it's just kind. And then if you do, then we'll get more followers and then we can have really cool guests. So that's really nice.
Yeah. So, hello everybody and welcome to Real Talks. What she said about following. No, so before we get going today, I thought that there was a couple stories I saw that I thought were absolutely necessary to touch upon before. So, let me back up a little bit because I said that last week we were going to do horror movies. I didn't realize the Black Phone came out last week instead of this week. So we're going to we have somebody that just had a birthday, filmmaker that just had a birthday, and that's who we're going to speak about. I'll talk about him in a minute. And so the two things that I wanted to get off the top was, I don't know if you saw this, but Top Gun just passed $1 billion in the worldwide box office.
Now, can you put this in perspective with like maybe another huge movie that did really well like this?
Well, so the few that, I can think of off the top of my head is Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, Spider-Man No Way Home had legs for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it just stayed in the box office. And what this movie has been able to accomplish in 32 days, it's only been out 4 weeks, is astounding. And, I would even go so far as to say that Top Gun is, I'll go so far as to say Top Gun Maverick is one of the better sequels that we've had along the way, and I've said that before.
Above and beyond better. I just overall like as all of the different points and
so yeah, so the other thing being is this: Tom Cruise himself has made, and this puts things in perspective. Tom Cruise himself, as a star, has made $8.5 billion at the box office worldwide.
through his career.
Throughout his career.
Yes.
The fact that we don't see this type of thing anymore. So I'll give you an example, okay? Marvel. They've got 39 movies, with everything that's happened, but most people think of the Infinity Saga and Phase 4. That's made $26.6 billion. Tom Cruise himself, by himself, has made 8.5. With about 11 movies. So you're talking about a third of the movies and almost a third of the money. Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
And it still made another, $4 million for $4.5 million this last week, and it's still going to keep going and going and going until, this is going to leave theaters in probably a couple weeks, right around when Thor, Love and Thunder comes out. And stay tuned for our preview that happening next week. But the other big story I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to get your opinion on. So Bob Chapek, who is the head of Disney, he is the CEO.
Yeah.
He took over for Bob Iger. Bob Iger ran Disney for 20 plus years, beloved CEO. Everybody had, it was just, rainbows and unicorns with him.
Yeah.
And with so today it was announced from the Hollywood Reporter that he got a 3-year extension by Disney. And the board of the directors had voted him unanimously to give him the extension.
Okay.
My question to you is, after the whole Scarlett Johansson debacle, and that's what it was, called what it is, debacle, and how he treated her and that whole thing, do you think he deserved it?
Do I think that he deserves an extension? Is what you're asking, correct?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel as though now I don't condone what the studio did to Scarlett Johansson, and maybe you can give us like a 1-sentence explanation for the people who are listening of what happened. Basically, she wasn't really given what she felt she was due. Isn't that right? For streaming?
Correct. So what ended up happening was she had clauses in her contract in what's called the back end. Okay, so if a movie makes so much money during the opening weekend, you get X amount of bonus. And this is what they did with Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot for Wonder Woman, the new one, as the pandemic began. So we fast forward, okay? She was supposed to get a certain amount of money. Yeah. And what ended up happening was Black Widow instead of having a exclusive theatrical release, it was put on Disney Plus. And what Disney did was they said, okay, well, we're going to charge you, the consumer, $30 to not only, mind you, this is plus the subscription you're paying.
Right.
So you're paying $30 to watch the movie, and then you have to wait another 6 weeks before you can actually watch it for free on Disney Plus. Okay, it makes $80 million, and it opens the theaters to another 80. She then turned around and sued Disney for breach of contract, which in turn she was right. Yeah. And the reason why I have such a problem with it is because Chapek basically, one thing that Bob Iger did, it was great with talent. One thing that Bob Chapek did, it was character assassination. And he basically called her greedy. He called her self-centered. He called her a number of other things we won't repeat on the show. But the point is, he basically threw her under the bus. Okay. Instead of giving her what was due to her, he said, fuck you. So what she did was she put up the middle finger and she took him to court.
Are they still in court?
She then sued Disney. No. So she ended up suing Disney, and eventually, after much, arbitration and everything else, it came out that she was right. But here's the caveat, okay? What? Here's the caveat. The caveat is this. Dwayne Johnson, during the same time, okay, there was a little movie called Jungle Fever or something. Okay. Cruise. Thank you, Jungle Cruise. Nonetheless, they renegotiated his contract, so he got the back end deal, but she didn't.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Why is she not getting the same deal that he is?
Because, well, I mean, I don't want to chalk it up to, what everyone thinks I'm going to chalk it up to, which is that women are paid less generally, and that is a fact. But what I'm surprised he was unanimously voted back in because, well, okay, so let's put it this way. This is the sad truth, is that it should have been a PR nightmare, and it kind of was, but it wasn't that much. If you think about it, I feel like it should have been a bigger deal. And because it wasn't, he's voted back in. And I do think that's the reason. And no, I don't think he should be allowed because, it was such a clear injustice to somebody who has held up her end of an entire Marvel, franchise. And that's just that was her last movie. Honestly, it was just kind of spitting in her face. And I doubt she'll ever work for Disney again after that. So it's kind of this thing where I feel like for some reason, he just feels like she's expendable, and that's not okay. So no, I don't like that he got voted back in, but that's just unfortunately apparently where we're at, is that we're still not outraged enough, and so he's still here.
Yeah. No, and you're right, though. You're absolutely right. You hit the nail right on the head, because the fact is that even if the worst part about the whole thing is two things. Number one, he never even bothered to say, I'm sorry.
Of course
because
not.
in his heart of hearts, he believed he was right.
Or
and the
did know that he was wrong, and he is just a prideful SOB.
And that just makes him a worse person.
Yeah, and I believe he knows he's wrong. I just don't think
and the second thing is, what does that say about the board of directors?
Yeah, this is very true.
You have a bunch of people behind the desks pushing paper. Maybe they're wearing $3,000 suits. But what is that saying about the board of directors, that they are giving him another contract to basically do this? Because here's the thing. Mark my words. 3 years from now, when we're talking about this again, if this happens again, people are going to get very, very ticked off. And I'm not talking about inside Disney, even though there was turmoil there. I'm talking about shareholders.
Oh, so
I'm talking about people that are going to ban going to movies. I'm talking about people that are going to ban going to Disney stores. I'm going to talk about people banning going to Disneyland because of this clown.
Okay, so I have a question. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah.
So is there outrage right now? Because it's not just us talking about it. It's like there are people out there that are actively like, no, he doesn't deserve this. Or
no. I mean, this has been under the radar for so long with Black Widow, and the movie's been out for so long, and you can watch it on Disney Plus, that people don't care. It's like the thing that makes the back page of the newspaper type of thing.
So why do you think?
Yeah, he got a new contract. Fine.
Yeah,
Big
but why
deal.
do you think people will care in 3 years if they don't care now? You think he's going to screw over more people?
I do.
Okay.
Because here's the thing: if it happens once, okay. If it happens twice, it's a coincidence. If it happens 3 times, it's a pattern. And for what he said, and how he said it, and he knew he was right, or he knew he was wrong, so to speak, and he admitted he was wrong, and he had to pay her more money. Instead of ponying up the money if he had ponied up the money she was deserved, and put it to bed and said, you know what, Scarlett, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
And we would have respected him more to be like, you know what?
The bad publicity.
Yeah.
The bad publicity for
know.
days and weeks and months. And now you're going to pay her?
More.
Come on. Exactly, more.
Yeah.
Anyways, I digress because we have other things to talk about.
We got to move on. But it'll be interesting to see what he does with his extension and whether he will prove that he deserves it or if he's going to just, continue to try to screw people over, specifically women. So, we'll see.
Yeah. Anyways, enough about the bad. Let's talk about the halfway decent or the good. So we are now talking about a filmmaker that celebrated his 56th birthday yesterday, and that is Mr. JJ Abrams.
I did not know he was this old for some reason.
I know. I didn't know this either
that's
until
not
today.
Even that old, quite frankly. But knowing what I know now, that he wrote a lot older films that I grew up with and you grew up with. Yeah. It makes sense that he's in his late 50s.
He's only a couple years younger than Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is going to be turning 60
now
on July 9th.
I think that they put Tom Cruise away in a cryo chamber every night. And I think that he goes into hypersleep when he's not doing a film. We don't really see him. In the Scientology church, I'm sure that they have that. And they're just they're keeping him fresh,
Yeah. He's going to be here when he's 100.
100%, and he's going to look
Yeah.
exactly the same. So, all
Yeah.
right,
Nice.
JJ Abrams, what's
So,
a quick little synopsis, just so that everybody knows who he is.
so Abrams was born in New York City, and so his parents were very distinguished. His father was he's Polish. He has a Polish and Jewish descent, and but his mother was a Peabody winning television executive producer.
A
And
Peabody
his
one?
Yeah,
Cool.
and not to mention an author and a law academic. Okay, his father worked at CBS and the
Oh,
flagship and moved his way up. So he was like born right into one of these entertainment,
he had entertainment.
households.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
His mother worked. So that's what he did. His mother was a real estate agent while he went to school, and actually, JJ attended Palisades High School out here in California, and went to school. And so when he was 18, he eventually rolled into Bronxville, New York, and he followed his father's advice because he wanted to actually make movies from a very young age. It's important that you go. This is what his father said. It's important that you go off and learn how to make movies, rather than learn what to make movies about than how to make movies.
Wait, hold on. I think that we turned it around. So wait,
Yeah. So
it's more important to
yeah,
which one's more important?
it's more important that you go off and learn what to make movies about than how to
Okay,
make
here we
movies.
go. Okay, then how to. I
So
agree. Well,
yeah.
and this shows in his career as he became somebody that wrote some really, really big films like Forever Young with Mel Gibson and
Yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis. Ooh, and a young Elijah Wood was in that. One of my favorite movies ever, actually. Like, I grew up watching that. It was incredible. And then also the movie that you mentioned earlier, off the podcast of regarding Henry with Harrison
Yeah.
Ford, and he
Yeah.
wrote those. I
Yeah.
wonder how
And
old he was when he wrote those.
so he wrote. So he had to be, 91 was 34 years ago. So you're talking about, 28, 29?
No,
So,
wait, no,
he started his.
87 was 34 years ago because I'm 34.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
But, well, let's say this. He had his first job at 16. He wrote music.
Okay.
So that just tells you he
He
wrote music for
composed?
a film. Yeah, he actually. So speaking of composing, he actually wrote the theme for Felicity.
Oh, so random.
Yeah. So he ended up writing for the Felicity, and he ended up, yeah. I mean, he wrote a lot. He wrote the opening for Alias.
Oh, wow. Yeah, actually, and didn't he do Alias?
Yeah, he was an
that's
executive producer.
That's one of JJ's, that's one of his shows. Now,
So,
I feel like what he's most known for is Lost. I think Lost was
absolutely.
like kind of his swan song situation show wise. I think that Lost changed like television completely.
Yeah.
I think that Lost was the first show I ever watched where you truly didn't know if your favorite character was going to die. Like every other show that I ever watched, I was like pretty sure that if they were a main character, they were going to stay alive, and JJ would just kill them off. And I mean, they had the most compelling storytelling. I don't know how to explain like how they
No,
did.
I know what you edge of your seat. So it's interesting. I actually watched a TED Talk with him,
Ooh,
and it was a very fast. So you can go back. It was in 2007, and it was called a Mysterious Box. And so when he was growing up, his grandfather was basically he would show him so he would take apart and show JJ how these things would work, and because he was curious. And so there was a little magic shop in where he was growing up. And so he went to this little magic shop, and he bought this little. He actually brought it, and this was in '07. He still didn't. I'm sure he still hasn't opened it all these years later. But it was a little box he bought for $15, and it reminded him of his grandfather, and it taught him about how mysterious things can be. You know, in certain, and he had certain examples. And I just thought it was fascinating all those years ago that he would do that, and all these years later, he's still doing that.
Well, and Lost is like, that was basically the entire premise of the show was mystery, like unfolding of things we don't know. Not only that, but he's an incredible storyteller when it comes to like studying of characters, like how we slowly got the background of each character as we went, and then we understood why they acted the way they acted. But we might not have understood it, 5 episodes ago when they did something crazy. But now that we know what happened when they were a kid, it's like now we get it, and we have empathy. And it's like this thing where he really built out all of the characters so that we cared about certain characters. Also, I would say that he wrote one of the best, most cunning villains ever with well, I know you haven't seen it, but the character Ben, anybody who has watched the show can tell you that it was one of the best written villains I've ever experienced. Anyways.
Yeah, no, so he actually directed a couple episodes of Lost, and he was a writer for 3 episodes. And so actually yeah, no, only 3 because he did everything.
Well, shoot.
He created, he wrote, he was an executive producer, he composed the theme, so he was just, he only had time for a certain amount of things. Actually, if you want to go back and listen to the interview I did with Brad Rochefort, he talks all about character. And we talked about this in a previous podcast, and you can go back and listen to it. But it's just amazing when you actually watch a character on screen, and then if you think about it, you go, wow. Okay, yeah. And so all of these elements are in there, and that's what makes appealing characters to moviegoers.
Well, you want to know about them, you want to empathize with them, you want to feel like you see yourself in some of them, and maybe even see like the uglier parts of yourself in others, so that you can be like, oh, okay, we're all screwed up. And basically, Lost was just an entire airplane of screwed up people that crash landed on an island. So that was the premise. He also did Star Trek.
Yeah.
Did he do all of the new Star Treks?
No. So he did. So he directed the. He directed the first one. And he didn't write it, but he directed it, and he was the producer of it. As far as he didn't write Into Darkness, but he directed that as well. And he was a producer. And he didn't write, and he didn't direct the third one, Beyond, Star Trek Beyond. I liked I liked the reboot of Star Trek. I thought it was good because of the stories. I mean, you knew the stories of Kirk and Spock and McCoy and all these guys and all these characters, but they were done differently. But the one thing I loved was the lighting, the way he lit scenes.
Interesting.
And just the abundance of light he had. It was just amazing. And so he actually made it a point, and he's actually come out and said this, that he wanted to make sure every single person, every single character, even if they were on screen for only a few seconds, he wanted to make sure every single person was on screen. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I love that, yeah. No, I loved that. Honestly, I thought the casting was really well done. I'm not a Trekkie, so I didn't know. I only knew the very basic things from when I was a kid and I watched like the movies that would come out. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I felt like the first one was really good. I don't remember if I really loved the second one, and I don't know if I saw the third one.
No, I mean, Beyond was not. So there was some backlash. I mean, for Into Darkness, I mean, I remember going to see, when I went to go see The Hobbit, I went to go see it with somebody, this is all these years ago, and I got to see, and it was in IMAX, and I got to see the first 9 minutes of Star Trek Into Darkness. And I went, whoa. And it was pretty cool. And I so it stopped right at the scene where there, the father was looking at him and he's like, "Who are you?" And then he's, we see Khan and then cut. Yeah. But I just thought that was really, so there was a lot of critics, they responded to the film well. Uh-huh. But there was one of the director of the original one called it a gimmick, essentially. Mm. Because, so anybody who's seen, I don't know, have you seen Into Darkness?
Yeah, I think I did. Wait, okay. No, not the third one?
No, it's the second one.
Oh, okay.
With Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yes. Yes, okay.
So, anybody who hasn't seen the film, what they did was there was a quick role reversal. So anybody knows in the 1980s, in the 80s version, Spock dies. And the subtitle of the third movie is The Search for Spock. So at the end of the second movie, he's put out into space, and that's that. In the third movie, they go out and find him because they need to do something. In this movie, okay, you have, what you have is Kirk died. And Spock
I don't remember this. Wait, this was one of the ones that we watched?
So Spock, so basically Kirk saved the ship, went into the core. He did what he needed to. Yes. And he died of radiation poisoning. And Spock, he was on the outside. And there was a scene where he says, "You are my friend," because it's a replay of what happened in the beginning when Spock was in the volcano and he saved him. Mm-hmm. But so getting back to what I was saying, the director actually called it a gimmick, and he was really upset because it was not. Once again, you had whitewashing, even back then, with Ricardo Montalban, and that's what made him so good. Because at the time, if you remember, you might have been a little girl, but at the time you had Fantasy Island, which was one of the biggest shows on television. Oh, and what ended up happening was, he actually took that role and went and played Khan in the sequel, and it was huge. So when they put Cumberbatch in there was a lot of backlash because
that's wild.
So
do you feel like that was warranted? The backlash? Do you think that was as a Trekkie?
So so about it, 2 years after the film's release, Abrams said this about the film. There was, quote, "There were certain things I was unsure of. Any movie has a fundamental conversation happening during it, and for Into Darkness, I didn't have it. The weakness of the plot wasn't anyone's fault but mine. The script was a little bit of a collection of scenes that were written by my friends, and yet I found myself frustrated by the choices and unable to hang my hat on an undeniable thread of the main story. So then I found myself on the movie basically tap dancing as well as I could try and make the sequences as entertaining as possible. I would never say that I don't think that the movie ended working, but I feel that it didn't work as well as it could have had I made some better decisions before we started shooting." So it's interesting to see somebody to actually go back and critique themselves and say, "You know what? I would have done this differently had I actually been more reliant." And to say that the script was bad, he didn't blame anybody but himself.
Well, and that is like honestly the most respectable thing you can do is to be like, I'm an artist, I made decisions. Looking back, I don't know if I'd make the same decisions. Like that's why he's probably great, is because of this. And then so he did Star Trek.
So this leads into we go into the 2000s. He founds this little company called Bad Robot. Yep. Which, Paramount, and him get together. and he is then an EP. Well, first of all, one of the films, one of the very first films, and anything could have been better than what it was the 2006 Mission Impossible 3.
Ooh.
I personally like that film.
I loved it. I
thought
Mission Impossible 2, but I've loved everyone after.
I thought Philip Seymour Hoffman killed it.
Amazing. I mean,
Killed it.
That's the best villains ever. That was incredible.
And so he ended up directing that.
Oh, I didn't know
I thought it was, so I thought, and that was actually his directorial debut.
Oh! Well,
So that was, I was really interested in seeing that. So, but yeah, so Paramount, and now he's been on the last 5 or 6 films, well, 4 films. He's been an EP or an executive producer on Rogue Nation, on Fallout, on, Ghost Protocol. He's been an executive producer. So he's definitely had a hand in it, but he's not all the way in it. Chris McQuarrie is still the director, and he's been writing with him. And, I mean, these movies are getting bigger and bolder and,
a bigger budget every time.
Yeah, so we were talking off camera, and this new Dead Reckoning Part 1, which I believe is going to be the end of this.
Oh,
because if you look at any major franchise,
when there's
like Hunger Games, like Deathly Hallows, whatever, and when they split it up into 2 parts, that's basically the end of it.
That's
so
it.
Anyways, what she's getting at is the reported production budget for this is $290 million. So think about it like this. Infinity War was $250.
Oh, what? Really?
Infinity War and Endgame were each $250.
It's a lot. Wait, is this what was it, 280?
$290.
$290 for just part 1? Whoa! Okay, that's really cool.
So
that's interesting.
You're talking about a movie that has to make at least, and I say at least in quotations, at least $800 to $900 million worldwide just to break even. Just to break even.
Yeah.
Is it going to be $1 billion film? We'll see because of what just happened with Top Gun.
I almost feel the Top Gun success will translate.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's gonna launch this.
Absolutely.
Because
and as we get closer,
yeah,
and as we get closer to the release next year, and as soon as another trailer comes out with all these unbelievable stunts that he does, they're gonna go, yeah, we need to go see this. So it'll be interesting too to see what it goes up against.
Yes,
because whatever it goes up against, I mean, obviously it's going to win the box office, but if it goes up against some, crap films, it's going to kill it 4 or 5 times over.
100%.
So he actually found Bad Robot with Paramount, so that he's an EP on a lot of these Mission Impossible movies, as I said. But the big one, and I really believe he got this movie because of the success of Star Trek, was the 2015 The Force Awakens.
Yep.
And this movie was let's put it this way. It's the unbelievable this tells you something. This had a production budget of, when I say this, I mean The Force Awakens, had a production budget of $300. Did I read this correctly? $300 million. Yeah, $306 million.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me.
$306 million.
Yep.
Okay. Opening weekend. This is before Infinity. You got to understand now. This is before Infinity War and Endgame. Okay. $247 million.
I can't believe though that. Well, maybe I can. Never mind. I was about to say something silly.
As it is the number one to this day, more than Avatar, more than Endgame, more than Spider-Man: No Way Home. It is the number one domestic box office of all time.
That makes sense.
Now, $936 million. Now, I'm going to tell you how. So, there's something behind this. So when I went to see it, okay, I remember sitting down in the theaters with some people, and I watched the first 15 minutes, and I went, "Oh my God, this is it was a carbon copy of Star Wars."
Yep.
A carbon copy. So actually, okay, so he was the first director to make $2 billion since James Cameron, of course, Avatar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people, including George Lucas, called it too similar to Star Wars.
I don't see how he couldn't have noticed that it was pretty much exactly the same as the first Star. Like how did he
Because
know?
he didn't have a hand in it. You got to understand something. He didn't have a hand in it. George Lucas passed it off. He was done with Star Wars.
I'm talking about JJ Abrams.
Okay.
How did JJ Abrams not look at it and go, "Oh my gosh, we made Star Wars A New Hope again"?
Because that's what he was doing. So to answer your question, and the short answer is this: if it's not broke, you don't fix it, right?
Sure, and I get that, sure.
All you were doing is changing the characters. So this is what he actually said. He responded to these complaints, and he said, quote, "What was important for me was introducing brand new characters using relationships that were embracing the history that we all know to tell a story that is new. To go backwards is to go forwards."
Ooh, okay.
So what he did was he took the settings, he took everything about it, and he said, okay, we have to take a step back in order to move 2 steps forward. And that's what he did. I remember, a couple things. Number one, I remember writing a piece that I was on the computer one day and I saw something on Yahoo. And I remember seeing this piece from Yahoo Entertainment about how incredibly expensive these tickets were getting. And these people were scalping these tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did a little digging, I did a little research, and I found on eBay, Craigslist, a couple other sites, these tickets were going for upwards of $2,000 opening night.
Oh my gosh! But honestly,
I wrote a piece and saying the prices for these are out of this world. And I go and I talk about that there's no way that these should happen for 3 reasons. Number one, it's not like you're going to a concert, for example, and you're sitting as close as you want, so you're going to spend more money to be closer to the talent.
Yeah.
Number two, okay, it's one night. Okay, so it doesn't matter. It's not like they're going to be there night after night after night. It's one night.
Yes.
And number three, no matter where you sit, and by the way, it's illegal in the state of California to scalp tickets, so you can't do it for more than the face value of the ticket. But I said, number three, shame on these sites like Craigslist. And listen, I'm all for capitalism. But shame on these sites like Craigslist and eBay that will not remove these people for basically scalping and price gouging these people. And people paid the money. So in Monday Night Football 2015, that trailer aired. Do you know, within seconds, I'm not kidding, in seconds, that site Fandango crashed.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Crashed.
Yeah.
So when they had already come out and said, look, we're going to make 3 of these things.
Yeah.
So I remember doing a little background and contacting Fandango, and I, got a generic response. And also, I remember when The Force Awakens, which he was an executive producer on, came out in 2017. Guess what happened? It crashed again because they didn't think there was going to be enough servers. Okay, we digress. A couple years ago, 2019, he writes and directs it. Okay? What happens? It crashes again because it's the end of the trilogy and people
Yeah.
want to see what happened.
Well,
And by the way, yeah, go ahead.
no, I just like, I feel like it's not necessarily because JJ did it. I think it's because it was Star Wars. And
No, I totally agree with you.
like, but I mean that. So wait, did JJ just like for the people at home? Did JJ do all of the Star Wars or just the
No,
first?
he was an executive producer. Okay, so here's how it went. He directed and produced the first one. He wrote, directed, and produced the first one. Ryan Johnson, and this is where people got, and I still don't know to this day, there was a lot of backlash for The Last Jedi. It's a good movie. It's not great. Some people absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
Because Rey was supposed to be, and he's even come out and said in previous interviews, that she was supposed to be a nobody.
Yeah.
Well, what happens
that was like everybody's hope almost was that she'd be a
right?
nobody.
So therefore, what happens when Rise of Skywalker comes out in 2019, and I saw it twice. I mean, once both in theater, and I saw it once opening night. I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to go back and see it again, just so you know how you try to watch a movie a second time to see if your opinion changes.
Yeah.
So I did, and it didn't change. It was one of the worst retcons I've ever seen in my life.
Wait, what? What?
So a retcon is basically taking away the story of the previous. So when you have like 3 movies like this, a retcon is it's basically taking away or it's not it's
Are you trying
so
to?
in a film or television series, a piece of new information that imposes on a different interpretation or previously described events typically used to facilitate a dramatic plot shift or accountability for an inconsistency.
Okay, you have to.
Or
We have
revision.
to. Can you say that in English? Like what? What is
So,
it? Basically,
okay,
like
so it's
a movie that ruined everything they built in the last 2.
okay, exactly. So
Okay.
essentially, so what happened was that what happened in The Last Skywalker was completely taking everything away from what happened in The Last
it was
Jedi.
left field. Yeah, it was left
Right.
field shit. And
And
how the
so
end came back. Like what?
it was, yeah, and it was a complete retcon. And it was terrible. And the fact that Palpatine was still alive and,
Like,
Rey and you know, what's his face, fall in love and he kisses her. I mean, just
Well, and,
the
like,
memes out there are hilarious.
they can pass things to each other like somehow.
But it's no.
Yeah, they did a bunch of new things, and I was like,
It was
this isn't
just
at all the same place that we thought.
horrible. It was just horrible, and it was one of the worst I'd ever seen. And now, when that happens, now look, it made $1 billion, and we both agreed it made a lot of money. Fine, but the thing is, when you have a movie that's universally, I won't say hated, but despised.
Pretty
Okay,
much.
people.
I mean, the prequels
Okay.
were also universally despised.
But there was a story behind it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that being said, people were tired. People were tired of the Star Wars, and can even call it Star Wars fatigue.
Yeah.
Because you have so much stuff coming out. You've got The Mandalorian,
Yep.
then you've got the Book of Boba Fett. Mm-hmm. Now you just had Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Terrible.
You know,
I
How
do. I
much-
think we're having fatigue, and then of course, right when they start doing all of this, Disneyland comes out with Star Wars Land, and
Yeah.
so now
The-
I realize though that that's like far more for I think the up and coming generation. I mean, I went there when it was kind of just starting, and I got to do like the big ride because no one wanted to do
Yeah.
it, so I just went on the solo tunnel,
Yeah.
so I got to do it
Yeah.
right away and whatever, and it was fun. But I mean,
Yeah.
like it just. I agree with you. I just feel like they're beating it to death. And why can't we wait for things anymore? Like, why can't
Yeah.
there be more thought process and more like story development?
Well, and this is where, so this comes, now we have, Andor coming out, moment in like a few months. So to answer your question though, people, this goes back to one of your favorite directors that we're going to be talking about in a couple of weeks when we spoke about on Lightyear, Mr. Martini.
Yeah.
So he is actually going to be doing a brand new, and you actually brought this on the roundup.
I did.
So the story that she referred to was he is going to do a Star Wars movie completely and totally separate of anything having to do with the Skywalker saga.
Zero. I'm hoping for
Zero.
Absolute zero characters we've already have ever heard of. None.
So
I want only.
So it will be very fascinating to see.
It will be.
What story he comes up with, because that's going to be so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But
I agree.
Okay, I know we really didn't touch. So yeah, it was Abrams has done a lot, and then we'll see what he's gonna, what's coming up for him. But okay, quickly coming up next week, we're actually going to be doing the Thor: Love and Thunder preview. I hope she joins me so that's going to be fun. We got Flashback Fridays coming up this week. This week's going to be probably one of the best movies of the bunch, and that's Guardians of the Galaxy. That's going to be a blast. So Ann and I are going to be talking about that. Mm-hmm. Mom Mondays. I still have not forgotten about Mom Mondays. I'm looking to try and get this up and running for August. I'm making a list and checking it twice.
I was just going to, but no.
So it's one of those things
Absolutely
where,
not.
I might be able to get Brad for a couple of these, so we're going to have to look at scheduling. But that's going to be on Anchor, and that's going to be on one of the things. That's going to be a subscription service. That's going to be $7 a month. It's going to be a good time there. And then coming up, later on this month, at the end of the month, I'm going to do Brad Pitt movie. Well, first of all, we've got Nope. That's going to be Jordan Peele movies. I got to sit down and watch Get Out and Us. And then at the end of the month, we're going to be doing Brad Pitt movies because of Bullet Train, and he hinted this might be his last movie.
Ooh,
and then this might actually be interesting. And so we got a ton of stuff for the rest of the summer.
That's exciting, yeah. Well, and we'll be here. We'll be here doing all the movie things, and I just feel like it's going to be a jam-packed year. And so me and David are going to be cooking up some great things for the rest of the year. Especially, I think that it's fascinating to always watch how things stack up before the end of the year, because there are obvious, hot seasons, and there's low, nothing's going on seasons. Yeah. So it'll be interesting.
And we will do an end of the summer. We're probably going to try and get Ryan back, but we will try and do like an end of the summer thing and what we thought was good and not and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so quickly follow us on social media. I'm on Twitter at WannaBeRounder. She can be found in DeCaduto in Instagram, and she can be found on Instagram at
Elisa Ivers, ELISAIVERS. And on TikTok, even though it's for curly hair people.
Yeah, follow us on Facebook too.
Yeah.
And shoot us both. Shoot me a DM. Shoot me a couple of messages. Tell me what you want to see. And we'll see if we can't make it happen. We do have a Patreon. I'm not going to get into it. Just go to patreon.com. Just type in Real Talks in the search bar.
I mean, the art.
And
this is
$3. $3 a month is a cup of coffee. It's a cup of coffee at Starbucks, and she's even going to write you a poem.
I'll write you a haiku if you sign up for at least $3. I'm very good at them, so it'll be a treat.
All right, guys.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. And
until next week.
Until next time.
I'm David Steele. And she is.
Oh, dang it.
All right.
We did our best.
And you've been listening to Real Talks.
Okay, bye.